Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the Managing Director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing Thai marriage visas. And I've had some correspondence here lately on this topic. Some people have been kind of frustrated with my responses on this, and I understand, but Thai marriage visas can be, depending on the circumstances, sort of one of those things that kind of falls into the gap. It falls into the breach and can be kind of a difficult thing to deal with. And let me explain what I'm talking about. So I'll have a lot of folks that'll be in retirement status, and they'll ask me about moving over to marriage visa status because they see, for example, to have a retirement visa, let's just look at it from the lump sum standpoint. You've got to have 80,000 baht a month, 800,000 baht in a Thai bank account in order to maintain status. And that gets looked at on a yearly basis by those adjudicating the retirement visa. And some folks look at it and say, hey, it's only 400,000 for a marriage visa. I want to switch over to that. My response in virtually all cases, and there are circumstances that vary and depend, but my response, first of all, in a lot of cases is, look, if you have the resources to keep the 800 and you're already in retirement status, just stay there. Because oftentimes it's a lot of expense of time and resources to get a conversion done. And on top of it, it's been my experience that Thai immigration scrutinizes Thai marriage visas far more heavily than they do retirement visas, especially for those who are essentially using a marriage visa effectively as a retiree. And let me differentiate this analysis from those who use a marriage visa and have a work permit. It's been my experience that marriage visas with a work permit, I won't say easier, but they're relatively more straightforward to deal with because the work permit, in essence, fulfills all the financial requirements. And in a very real sense, it sort of makes sense to the immigration officer. And so they just go ahead and deal with it without a lot of further scrutiny. They go ahead and move it down the line. Again, retirees, it's the same deal. Okay, you're in a retirement visa, you're not working, that makes sense. The problem is this sort of in the breach. It's the folks that are on a marriage visa but aren't working. And in those circumstances, and I have seen this happen, I remember a few years ago, I saw two different people in two different provinces be actively denied their marriage visa extension. And the officer that did it just said, look, no, we're not doing it. We think, in fact, in one case, they said, we think you're working illegally because we can't figure out how you're living here and what you're doing. And in other cases, there's very heavy scrutiny of the family. They'll send immigration officers to the house. They'll want to see everybody's living together. They may even want to take photos. They may have you show up multiple times at the immigration office with photos to prove up that you're together and everything. So long story short, and I'm not saying this is in every case, but in a lot of the cases I deal with, if there's an option to have a work permit or an option to have a retirement visa, oftentimes that's a much, I hesitate to say easier, but it's a less cumbersome thing to deal with than to be in a marriage visa. And for whatever reason, I actually think I kind of have some insight into this, where I just think the immigration office kind of says, well, look, if you're retirement age, just be in a retirement visa. Or if you're working age, work. But they kind of view, the marriage visa as, what are you doing here? Yeah, we know you're married to Thai, but if you're under the retirement age and you could be working, I think they kind of think, maybe they kind of think you should be working. I'm not going to delve too deep into what I think their thought process is. But long story short, yeah, unfortunately, marriage visas, especially with the scrutiny of the family and things, they can be difficult to deal with. And for this reason, if you have other options, sometimes it may be better than trying to deal with a marriage visa on its own.